hope you're all doing well. I really do. So, yeah, interesting couple of days. Every once in a while, I gotta go through a battle with ScrewTube. For some reason, when I go live, the actual go live button is gray. It's like if you click the second when you click it, it like shows that you've clicked it. That's how you know you clicked it. Well, that's already there. Like I can't click it because it's like gray. It's like the option to actually go live, and I was hoping to get that resolved a lot sooner, but they're not on my schedule. I'm on theirs, so I don't even know where to begin. I guess we'll start off with turning the chat on. That's always a good place to start. There is just so much attached to this and so many moving parts, and it's just getting started. It's just getting started. I have been warning about this day for a very long time, and it's not just as simple as Palestine and Israel. It's all of the nations that are allied up, and it's the inside jobs, it's the psyops, it's the creation of the New World Order, the furtherance of it, the new policies, the technologies, every single thing that has to do with it. And obviously, one of the most important parts of it all is depopulation. And what better way to wipe massive amounts of people off the lands that you want than war? Didn't take long at all for this type of rhetoric. Israeli official calls for doomsday nuclear missile option. How you guys doing? I hope you're enjoying your weekend. An Israeli lawmaker is calling for her nation's military to use nuclear warfare in response to attacks on. Yeah, great idea. Great idea. And I think it's important the history of all of this, right? I mean, the way the mainstream media and all of the talking heads, this is a clear deciding factor of who's actually on our side as human beings, right? And not just mouthpieces and puppets for the New World Order or the industrial complex, the military industrial complex. People that you may once have thought like, oh yeah, I really like this person. They give me a lot of good information, and that very well is probably the case up until now. And now they're all singing the praises of one group in particular. And if you side, or not even side, because I don't side with anybody. I'm my own person, and I just see things how I see them. There's no siding. Violence is wrong on any level. I condemn violence on all fronts. I would never, ever encourage violence, regardless of what it may further, what agenda, what narrative, whatever it may further. There's other ways to go about it. Violence is clearly the worst thing that can be done upon another individual human or a group of humans. That being said, this goes back ages, right? This conflict. But all of a sudden, once this happens, which who really knows how this went down? None of us were there. All we know is what Israel has told the media, and the media has told us. It's hard to find actual people that were on the ground that were close, but what they say when you do find it is nothing like what the mainstream media is saying, and that's obvious. That usually is the case, right? Especially when dealing with war, when the drums of war start beating and the machines of war start manipulating everything that they can, then truth is out the window, and truth actually becomes an act of war. And I was surprised to see the mainstream media actually come out and say that, but we'll cover it. How you guys doing? Is the chat even working? Oh, we only got one person in here. That's not surprising. Let me go ahead and put an alert out real quick. What's up, Indigo? Good to see you. Oop, not live. All right. I figured that would happen, being unable to go live for the last couple of days. All right. There's so much I want to cover, guys. I don't have enough time to go through everything. Not even close. It's going to be hard to keep up with, honestly. When it comes to the details of it all, who cares, right? I mean, yeah, that stuff's important, but you can spend all your time, if you didn't work, if you had all 24 hours to yourself and you were trying to figure out all the nitty-gritty details of what's going on, you may be able to take like a 4% chunk off of what's going on. But it wouldn't matter, because at least 3% of that would be mis or disinformation, and that's coming from the official sources. So what we can do is see what it is that they're trying to tell us is okay and what's not okay, and what we should be able to say or do and how we should think, because that usually lets us know what direction that they are trying to take us in, right?
Hamas will understand that by attacking us, they've made a mistake of historic proportions. We will exact a price that will be remembered by them and Israel's other enemies for decades to come. The savage attacks that Hamas perpetrated against innocent Israelis
and Palestine's other allies. So what they're saying, what Benjamin Netanyahu's saying here is, it's not going to stop with just Palestine. And what they're doing to Palestine is unreal. I'm not for Hamas, even though that's the way the State Department would rather you thought of all of this, is if anybody just doesn't outright say, whatever Israel says, I'm for, right? Like all the people that changed their profile pictures to the Ukraine flag. I stand with the current thing. If you have an opinion or a thought process or have a set of facts that go outside of that, you will be shocked. Maybe not, but you will be shocked to see the language that is going to be used against you. Not for siding with terrorism, not for siding with Hamas, not for siding with anything, but for simply not 110% supporting, right? Like we just heard Biden say, I'm not joking. Silence is complicity. Silence is complicity. Meaning, if you're not gung-ho, let's have a war, and I support Israel, then you are complicit in terrorism. Coming from the president's mouth. Something you should pay attention to.
Are mind-boggling. Slaughtering families in their homes, massacring hundreds of young people at an outdoor festival, kidnapping scores of women, children, and elderly, even Holocaust survivors. Hamas terrorists bound, burned, and executed children. They are savages.
Everything that he's saying right now, keep in mind that they have done the same, and from what I am aware of, more and worse. But this isn't a who's lesser of two evils. I don't know enough about the Palestinian people, but they're people, right? They're not part of the military groups. They're not part of the terrorist. They're human beings like you and I that were told to evacuate because Israel is going to just start carpet bombing essentially everything. But there's no way out. They can't leave. There's nowhere they can go unless they decide to swim for it across the ocean. And some of the routes that were open for ambulances and things like that were bombed first. The cruelty is so over the top. This is evil at its core.
Hamas is ISIS. And just as the forces
And who trained ISIS? Who created ISIS?
of civilizations united to defeat ISIS, the forces of civilization must support Israel in defeating Hamas. I want to thank President Biden for his unequivocal support. I want to thank leaders across the world who are standing with Israel today.
Unbelievable. Now, some of the stuff I may say might not be popular among a lot of people because so quick I realized how bloodthirsty a majority of people are. It's so easy for them, under the same lies and propaganda that they finally so supposedly woke up to during COVID, right? Where they finally realized, that the mainstream media is lying to them, that the governments don't have your best interests at heart. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Those same mechanisms are at it again, but this time it's, you support terrorism. It's the same type of stuff as you're either with us or you're with the terrorists, right? With George Bush's speech after 9/11. No, I'm with neither. I'm not certainly with you, and I'm certainly not with the terrorists. I am opposed to all of this. Killing for the name of killing. I mean, it does have a history, right? I'm not going to dispute that. But if anybody actually took the time to really look into the history of it, they probably wouldn't be supporting Israel. Radicalized online and now offline. Good to see you. Glad to have you back. It's been a while. Speaking of creating ISIS and all of that, I think I got some stuff up about it. Now the truth emerges how the U.S. fueled the rise of ISIS in Syria and Iraq. Now this is an 8-year-old article, right? But it's funny how some of these things will come back in play because everything that's happening now was created by the U.S. and its allies. And now it's playing out in a certain way, and they're condemning the very people. And don't think Hamas is any different here because we funded them too. We helped them out too. That's besides the fact that Biden gave Iran $6 billion of their own money that was locked up, but it was sitting in a bank in Qatar. And no, it's only for like food and medical supplies and stuff like that. What's up, Kutz? Good to see you. And then let's not forget about the Afghanistan withdrawal, right? Where we left like $80 billion worth of military supplies. I mean, tons and tons and tons of weapons over there. AR-15s, which coincidentally, is what Hamas were holding when they did their little attack. They had all sorts of new equipment and still do. They're still using it. So I think that's something we should be paying attention to, because where did they get all of that? We're talking about Mossad as the intelligence agency for Israel. Now, this is one of the leading. It is a cooperation between the CIA, NSA, the MI5, and MI6 and Mossad, the Five Eyes, right? NSA is not part of that, but they're definitely being utilized as well. Now, they work in global cooperation with each other. Especially Israel, there is nothing that's going to get by them. The fact that Egypt even warned Israel ahead of time. Yeah, I do remember that. Yep. And we're right on track for that, aren't we, Indigo? There's no way that Israel didn't see this coming. In fact, I would personally believe that with the help of the US, France, Germany, Britain, like Europe as a whole, and Israel, I think they would be the ones more likely to set this up. They have so much more to gain from this. They want all of what Palestine is and Israel. They want that whole nation. When they first got there, when Israel was first allowed to become a nation in 1948 after World War II, they weren't given all the land that they currently have, but they created militia groups. They created violent groups that would go in and slaughter people in villages and take the land. And obviously, being people that were native of that land, and this goes back from the Ottoman Empire, even way before that. There's a long history to this land, of course. But after World War II is really when it started getting volatile as it could be. And Israel was starting to make more and more aggressive moves to capture more and more land, because all of the Jews that had been getting kicked out of countries prior for different reasons, reasons I definitely can't say here on YouTube, because it would be a bloody mess and I'd be liable for saying it, if you get it. But they were doing things, supposedly, that wasn't okay. And they kept getting caught doing it. And they were expelled from country after country after country. And then after evil really started taking its roots, they were able to set up shop in Palestine. And it's been a mess ever since. But as of like the last 10 years, it's kind of all been fitting nicely together with these so-called terrorist groups that we are training, that we've trained and that we've created as the United States and the Western countries, right? I mean, we've provided a lot of the training and funding even to Hamas itself. And being that we are Israel's number one ally, why would we do that? The War on Terror, that campaign without end, launched 14 years ago by George. This is 8 years ago. But by George Bush, is tying itself up in an ever more grotesque contortion. On Monday, the trial in London of a Swedish man, Berlin Gildo, accused of terrorism in Syria, collapsed after it became clear British intelligence had been arming the same rebel groups the defendant was charged with supporting. Well, isn't that interesting? And if you think it stopped then, no, it's only been exponentially increased. Yeah, that's a good analogy, Indigo. The prosecution even abandoned the case, apparently to avoid embarrassing the intelligence services, right? Because this shit does get leaked out every now and then. People start connecting dots and they're like, wait a minute, like this is where that money went. Well, it turns out that ISIS was there and we were training ISIS and over and over and over again, this comes out and it gets brushed aside, swept under the rug, and nobody's any the wiser usually. At least enough people that would actually matter. We still elect the same scumbag politicians into office that were guilty of doing the shit to begin with. And when something like this occurs, everybody just somehow gets right back in lockstep. And they're like, oh, I support the current thing. I support the current thing. Especially when it comes to war. What I am glad to see a little bit is that even though it's a bad thing, is that it's dividing the right. It's really bringing out the shills and the plants. Not all of them. Some will be tapped later on. But many of them, many of the people that you may have thought, like you're unsure of, can no longer be the case. Yeah, I kind of got proof of that, Cuts. Not up yet. This video is just kind of getting back into it. I unfortunately wasn't able to go live the last few days, so I'm gonna kind of gloss over a little bit of how this thing's kicked off and what it's looking like very, very broadly, and then I'm gonna go back to what the United States is saying about what we should be talking about and how we should be viewing it and what we should or should not be saying. And it's no coincidence that the ADL and Elon Musk were having that fake ass battle, right before all this happened. So yeah, and the CIA too. MI6 had cooperated with the CIA on a rat line. That's dealing with the Syrian rebels and the fall of Gaddafi. We've been behind many of these terrorist organizations and their operations since their inception. And we are their inception. We are the ones that bring these groups together, whether through coups, whether through tearing down the current socio-economic, military, that's like a socio-political, economic, military conglomeration of all of them, and then putting in our own, and that's usually in the form of some terrorist organization that is taken over, right? And then who comes to save the day? There'll be some type of attack, and then, oh, here we come. The police officers of the entire world, the United States, will come in and save everybody. We have standing armies in so many countries right now, and the only sections that, like, let's take Syria, for instance. We're not occupying all of Syria, no. No, we staged chemical attacks, right? We were caught literally staging them. The people that were, like, fake breathing, then there was, like, the people that were dead on the ground, but the one guy was smoking a cigarette because, luckily, the cameras kept rolling. And they caught some footage that they weren't supposed to. So all those people that were dead on the ground that died of the gas, they weren't dead. But they needed to make it look that way so we could go in and invade Syria and help all of the needy people and save everyone because we're the good guys. But really what it was about was going in, trying to topple over the government, Bashar al-Assad, and all the people that support him, while simultaneously setting up shop in the area of Syria that has all the oil. Now, it's funny because remember when we went to war over 2001, the 9/11 attacks? The very first thing that came out of President Bush's mouth was, do not burn the oil fields. Do not. That was his first warning and his first speech in his declaration of war. And we didn't go to where supposedly Osama bin Laden was. We went to Iraq. But we didn't just go to Iraq. We went to Iraq and set up shop in their oil fields first. And then once we had everything unlocked over there, what did we do? Afghanistan now. And the first thing we did in Afghanistan, took over the poppy fields. Not because we wanted to burn them. Nope. We let the farmers continue growing the poppy, but we took the product. When it comes to absolute evil in this world, the United States needs to look no further than the mirror and their number one ally, Israel. In fact, I would say Israel's at the top. They have positioned many of their people in the highest positions of power across the Western world. In all things, manufacturing, marketing, media, militarily, the list goes on and on and on. But you can't say that because that's now anti-Semitic. Even though things may be true, you still shouldn't say them because it's an inconvenient fact, is what we're being told. Again, I don't support Hamas. I don't support anybody that's killing or doing any harm or violence to anybody. But I will call out what I see when I see it. I don't want to waste too much time on the past. We know what happened in the past, but this is older too. Not that old, actually. This one's relatively new, but I remember learning about this a long time ago. How the U.S. funded Hamas. Millions of dollars. No. Millions of dollars from the United States ended up in Gaza, which is governed by Hamas, despite the Biden administration's best attempts to keep the topic primarily under wraps. Israel has been the target of numerous terrorist assaults. There have been about a dozen conventional wars against the Jewish state, all varying sizes, and both have been present more frequently in combination. However, no gangs of hundreds of killers in black have ever planned to flood Israel with the intention of picking up random Jews off the street and out of their houses, killing them, and then throwing their bodies in the street. In fact, Rwandan mass murders of 1994, when hordes of Hutu militia killers went on a pre-planned killing spree against thousands of Tutsi people, and the closest analog to the methodology Hamas is today embracing. The bloodlust of Gaza audience is a recurring motif in these horrifying films of the murders of young women. There doesn't seem to be a single Gazan objective to the collective killing of civilian, despite a natural desire among ordinary Gazans to record the mutilations and embrace of spitting on the dying and a frantic endeavor to mutilate the dead. After the attack by Hamas in southern Israel this morning, Israel launched Operation Swords of Iron, which involved launching between 2,000 and 5,000 rockets. Hamas believed in line with its populace rather than in an unusual manner. Truthfully, something is so gravely wrong in Gaza that the United States should stay as far away from such barbarianism as it can. And it should also be hoped that it shares the same sentiments about America and keeps to itself. So once more, why did Hamas launch such a well-prepared and comprehensive attack on Israel communities and buildings used by the public, military, and civilians? The invasion was more of a well-planned land, sea, and ground assault at mass death and hostage capture than it was a surprise attack. And my point on this here is that there's no way Mossad did not know this was coming. Just like 9/11, right? Just like they wanted to keep doing these comparisons. This is Israel's 9/11. Well, precisely. And we know what really happened there. Q Bono, right? Who benefits? than it was a surprise attack in the traditional Pearl Harbor sense. It was intended to execute non-combatants, seize. What's up, Mitz? Good to see you. The callous killers believed they could obtain the most media attention and Arab unity by sensationally killing and kidnapping young people. They initially targeted a youth concert close to the. I don't buy any of this. I mean, I buy that it happened, some of it maybe, but there's so many conflicting stories. I'm not gonna put my chips anywhere. I'm not gonna say this is what I believe and this is what isn't what I believe until I feel comfortable saying it, because nothing is good here. But what this does benefit is the New World Order. This will surely clamp down as this starts heating up and taking off in countries like Turkey, in Iran, in Germany, in France, and all of Great Britain get involved. And of course, the United States is the first on that list, as war hungry as we are. And the things that you're going to be allowed to say and not allowed to say are going to get harder and harder to find. It's going to be much more of a gray area. Like, well, can I say it? Well, you'll find out when they come knocking. I started with this. This is Israel official calls for doomsday nuclear missile option. They're already using white phosphorus. It's already been seen. I've seen it. I've seen the videos. It has a very, very signatory type of explosion. Like I said, I don't got a whole lot of time. That we will cover some of the nitty-gritty stuff. I don't want to spend whole videos on it because that stuff can get boring. It really can. I think the best way to approach these types of things is like break them up a little bit, provide a couple of facts of how, if we're even able to obtain any facts, try to provide them, try to provide a little bit of history. But what as my channels usually have done, focus on what is happening here in the United States and what they're trying to tell us as to how we need to think about this, what's unacceptable, and what will soon be, in a sense, illegal. But not by definition of law, just illegal in the sense that you'll have a government agency asking you questions unless you start towing the official narrative. These camps, right, the FEMA camps, everything that's been going on, that's been building for a long time. I've been saying this for ages, it seems, that this is all being everything, including COVID. Remember I was talking about COVID being a force multiplier, being ready at its will anytime that they so choose to use it during World War III. Of course, you got to test it out before you go into live battle, right? But it's not about using it against the opponent. It's about using it against the people. Doesn't matter which country you're in. It's the government having that ability to lock them down, to quarantine them, to track and trace and database them. Doesn't always seem to go. Been seeing a lot of this everywhere. Now, this seems to me like psyops. You got a long time ago, you remember Jade Helm? The exercise Jade Helm? This was literally one of my first videos. 14 years ago. And what Jade Helm really was all about was about how the military forces were able to kind of blend in and make like active duty military right after the suspension of posse comitatus, which kind of prohibits this. It was to see how well the military units were able to blend in and mix in with your average citizen without being detected. And that ties greatly into the PSYOP divisions for doing things like you're seeing on your screen right now. Because this is happening all over. And I'm not going to say that there aren't people possibly doing this, but as coordinated as this seems to be, all of a sudden, these last couple of weeks, there's these flyers, right? And I was covering them off and on in the past, saying that something's fishy about them, but they weren't nearly in abundance as they are now. Now it's every city, everywhere has these flyers magically appearing, these anti-Semitic flyers. And offensive graffiti. There's always offensive graffiti. That's what graffiti is half the time. What kind of cat is that? Is that a dog cat? Cat dog? Cat dog. Sorry. Online hate surges after Hamas attacks Israel. Why everyone is blaming social media. Who's blaming social media? You mean while the mainstream media and the governments are blaming social media? Because none of the people using it are saying, damn this social media allowing me to look for what it is that I'm looking for. Nobody's saying that. Maybe a couple of people, but in majority, right? I mean, they might like pluck one or two people out of it like they always do, write a quote or take like a tweet or something that they posted and like magnify it so it's like, oh, and then they make it believe like this is what everybody's saying, and this, no, not at all the case. And nobody would this they have been after the First and Second Amendments so incredibly vehemently in this country that any chance they get, they're going to continue it. And what better way than war? War has always provided the necessary tools and reasons to do exactly that. And it's like, oh, you support the enemy, right? You're saying things that we don't want you to say. Well, no, I don't support the enemy. I'm just simply calling out things. No, you're supporting the enemy. Yeah, I've been busy. I mean, I couldn't go live, so. That's the only reason I am now. Allison Joseph got a bone-chilling threat in 2012. Interesting that we're going all that way back. From someone who identified herself as Becky. Hister should have finished his good work, the message read. The writer said she and her Louisville slugger were ready for the next chance we get. The frequency of hate-filled social media posts targeting Jews has only increased since then, said Joseph, a mother of four but everything is anti-Semitic when talking about the Jews. That's the problem. Unless you are praising them, it is anti-Semitic. The ADL put out a list recently of what, like, oh, this is. You can't even criticize somebody who is Jewish and not mentioning that. I myself had received a strike. Yeah, I've told this story a few times for criticizing George Soros. Not once in that video did I mention the fact that he was Jewish. I just was stating like this evil son of a, and all the things he was up to, and they gave me an anti-Semitic hate speech strike for it. Because according to them, now what other group has this type of protection, and why would you need it? Why should there be one and only one group that you cannot dare say anything about? There's so many good quotes about this by our founding fathers, too. If you want to know who runs the world, just find out who it is that you're not allowed to talk about. So she said she was not, I don't care. We get it. More violence. It's already been so bad. They got it so rough being at the top, being at the helm of everything. I mean, is there another group out there that I'm unaware of that has it any better? I mean, I'm sure if you took like your average, like the average income or what their net worth is, and then stack that up against anybody else, if you said like the amount of power that one group has as opposed to other groups, I'm sure that would stack up rather nicely as well. The laws, there's no laws that simply say like you can't say this about this specific group other than one group, right? They have their own thing. Like you can, hate speech is hate speech. You can't, if there was like me and my 4 white friends and we jumped a black guy, that's the problem, right? That clearly looks like we're a bunch of racists, and I can understand laws like that. I don't agree with laws because they always get abused. I think I'm an anarchist, so that's a whole video entirely. But I understand it. What I don't understand is if you already have the laws in place, then why does there need to be a separate set of those same laws for a specific group? Unless that group had enough power to either get those laws put in place, or for some reason everybody just thought like, hey, we feel really bad for these people and we think they deserve their own set of rules and laws. And I don't see that as being the case. I mean, money plays a big part in a lot of these things, I'm sure. This had me laughing. ADL director asks if Hamas is writing MSNBC scripts and coverage of the attack on Israel. Are you fucking kidding me? If they're saying MSNBC is too outlandish, I can't even imagine what anybody else like myself that actually has an opinion, what they're deemed as. The director of the Anti-Defamation League criticized MSNBC while appearing on the network for the way it was covering the ongoing fighting between Hamas and Israeli military. Yeah, because they wanted to just say, yeah, screw the history. Screw the long history of how this land was kind of like taken little by little by little by Israel. This was Palestinian land from the Ottoman Empire. Like I said, there's a long-ass history. But it really kind of changed big time after World War II in 1948, when they were declared the right to exist on this nation and be essentially a part of their own nation, Israel. Since then, they've just been acquiring more and more land, but the Gaza Strip was too far. They both want to hang on to this. It was originally Palestine's, but it is a border, and borders are important. You would for some countries, apparently, not here in the U.S. And my guess is that they probably, well, let's read on. While I am sad and trying to cope, I'll be honest, I am angry. I am angry with the world that allowed the dehumanization of Israel's and sanitize the terrorism of Hamas, said Jonathan Griebert during an appearance Monday on Morning Joe. I must say I love this show and I love this network, but I've got to ask, who's writing the scripts? Hamas? Greenblatt described in detail the atrocities that have been committed by Israel by members of Hamas during the surprise attack over the weekend, saying they are not fighters, they're not militants, and I'm looking right at the camera, they are terrorists. So I just think, like, guys, get the story straight, right? And all these pictures of, like, missiles or the rubble in Gaza, please talk to the Israeli mothers and fathers who lost. Oh, so that's it. So you're not allowed to show the absolute destruction, the annihilation of thousands and thousands of innocent lives if it's not the innocent lives that you should be supporting. No. And they're probably not going to do it again because the ADL is probably already talking to the advertisers of MSNBC and being like, oh, you see what they did? They showed that Israel leveled a bunch of people in Palestine. It's wrong on every front, but that's my point. Like, where is this coming from? The Hill. And they're all essentially like this at this point. You are not allowed to show or have or show facts or do anything. What's up, Melissa? Good to see you. That will put Israel in a negative light. Israel must destroy Hamas fast, or this thing becomes World War III. Oh, let's keep in mind that the innocent people in Palestine, have no way out. And when they're talking about Hamas, the terrorist organization, they also say things like, well, they hide out in the civilian areas. So when they're talking also about like bombing them out, they're literally talking about annihilating innocent people. And that's supposed to be okay. But if you're MSNBC for a short time and say like, hey, like showing the damage that Israel actually did, leveling all of these buildings, these residential zones, these hospitals, these ambulances. Well, don't do that. That might make them look bad, right? No. It's all support for Israel. Nobody's lives matter but Jews. And everybody else can burn. That's the problem I have. And you know what other big problem I have is I've read the Talmud, not all of it, and certain parts of the Torah, and honestly it's kind of disturbing because some of this makes sense when you see like, hey, it's fine if we do it, but everybody else are goyim. They don't deserve to be on this planet with us. It is just us. The rest are there to serve us. These aren't my words. They're in their holy books. Now, overall, I don't have a problem with any group of people, citizens, and peaceful people. But once you start committing violence on other people and killing people, that's a problem for me. And when you put your life in your country above every other person and think that your life is somehow worth more, that's an issue. I have an issue with that. Because we're all human beings. At least I think so. There's evidence that might suggest otherwise. But bringing it local, this is the type of shit I'm worried about. Billionaire CEO demands UPenn leaders quit and donations halt over alleged failure to address anti-Semitism on campus. What do they mean by that? They mean, so we live in America. We have free speech, and if the campuses aren't like first a priori of that, and then I don't know what is, right? Because that's where some of the most important conversations take place, are the future of the leaders of the free world. And right now it looks pretty dark. We know how indoctrinated, we know how infiltrated that these universities have become. But they still have free speech, or at least I thought they did. But when billionaire CEOs start putting pressure, and this is just one of many, for them to essentially eliminate one side of the discourse, of the debate, because you're supporting terrorism. Now, I've heard some chants, I've heard some things on both sides that are over the top and extreme, but they have the right to them if they're not outright calling for violence on other people. But they're trying to completely annihilate one side of this discussion. And that is the discussion that questions any part of what Israel is doing. That's funny that you say that, Melissa. It wasn't all that long ago that I had done the same. Recently. I don't got time to go through a lot of this stuff, guys. I'm just kind of jumping through the headlines. Like I said, in future videos, I'll break some of this stuff down a little bit more. We'll focus, we'll zero in on some topics. But this thing it's World War III. I officially declared World War III. Don't worry, don't wait for the media to do it. I officially declared World War III in that post. And I mean it. That's the day it started. Who am I to do it? Well, we'll see. "2022 saw the highest rate of recorded anti-Semitic incidents in the United States. American Jews fear the Israel-Hamas conflict could make things worse." Oh, yeah, because there's anti-Semitic flyers going around in cities. There's people spray painting swastikas. And yeah, you did a couple psyops at a synagogue, which to me were clear-cut psyops. There are, I'm sure of it, there's probably like neo-Nazi groups somewhere out there that would love to get away doing something like that. Now, I would condemn them just the same as I would condemn the other side of it. Violence is the problem here. Killing people, thinking your life is more important than others, that your ability to feed or provide for your family is somehow more important than, we're all human. And we all have lives, family, children, feelings, all of it. Like, there's no difference. It doesn't matter what group you're a part of or what your belief systems are. We're supposed to be, in this country, protected on all fronts. So anybody that tries to harm another group or eliminate some of their freedoms or that's what I have a problem with. Now, the government is usually the biggest promoter of this. They're the ones that go around bombing people because they are spreading democracy. And eliminating our freedoms because they're trying to protect whatever they're saying at the time. I'm going to get wrapping it up here in a second, guys. Got so much to talk about in these upcoming videos. just be aware that videos like this one right here are going to be under attack in the future. Certain opinions, and they're going to do what they always do with the QAnon method, right? Where they're going to group ideologies and ways of thinking into terrorism, right? They're going to be like, "Oh, you're spreading conspiracy theories again." Doesn't have to be a conspiracy theory by definition. It can literally be fact. And just inconvenient. And they'll find a way to make you supporting terrorism. Now, right now, nothing's popping off. But we know we are due in this country for a major psyop. And this provides the perfect opportunity. And once that occurs, all the shit that they're preparing for now by warning us, like, oh, this, all these anti-Semitic and blah, 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 this and that. It's going to get messy. And they want you dependent on them, on the government, right? They want you dependent on their social services, on their handouts, on your rations, however bad it gets. Eventually, your universal basic income. That way they have complete, utter, total control over you. They know you won't dare step out line because you might not get that month's rations. Or whatever leads up to that, right? You won't dare step out of line because you don't want to be labeled a terrorist. You don't dare step out of line. It's the same old game, but it's going to increase in intensity. And after whatever is going to happen happens very soon here, then that's exponentially increased. Before I get going, anybody got any questions, anything you want to talk about real quick? I'm going to try to cover all of this because there's no doubt in my mind that we are in the end times. I was essentially born for this reason. I knew it was coming and we're here now. So I'm going to be focused on it quite a bit, but at the same time, there's a lot of different aspects to that. There's the technology side of it, right, which is one of my favorite things to cover, but where we are biblically, that's a video. I can do that, and I'll make a live stream, and those kind of go hand in hand, yeah, so we can do that. I mean, all this is biblical, right? I know Ezekiel 38 does a pretty good job, but there's other ones too. It's not, that seems to be the go-to one, but I posted a couple other ones I thought were definitely worthy of people actually going through and, like, taking their time with these. There's so much in each of these verses that, like, you can read it once and, like, understand what it means. But it's when you dissect it, it's when you break it apart in its pieces and try to understand in its entirety what those pieces mean and bring them back together, then you get a much, much greater understanding of it. And we can do that together if you'd like, and run through a timeline. I try to stay away. I love giving predictions. Predictions are exactly that, predictions. I could be off, I could be right, it's whatever. But there's other things, that I can't nail down. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to get wrapping it up. I appreciate all the support. Definitely. Oh, yeah. I think I may not have. I'm pretty sure I did. But thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Jen. for monetarily supporting the channel. That definitely helps. I'm trying to get, so my new project is to like get enough money together, start working on better microphones, studio equipment, and like I really would like to do this full time. I need to be able to do this full time. So first we have to grow, right? Because we can't have the same people just donating. That's unfair. So we have to grow. So the first, foremost important thing is to share, get it out there, grow the channel. If it doesn't seem like a video, that would gain traction, find one, find a video, go through, make sure the name gets out there, make sure the channel grows. It's not my channel any more than it is yours. We treat it as such, get it out there, because we all play a massive role in this. Take it for what it's worth. All right, guys, I hope you all have a good night, a great day tomorrow. Much love. God bless. Peace.